Good evening and thank you for joining us. The province and Ottawa are celebrating $13 million in water and wastewater funding for more than 100 First Nations across Ontario. That money's already made its way to many communities, and as Xiao Li explains, the federal government says it's an important step forward in reconciliation.
For federal Liberals, spending $8.8 million on 235 water and wastewater projects at 116 First Nations across Ontario isn't just about infrastructure. Minister Patty Hajdu says it's a tangible form of reconciliation.
It's about making sure that everybody has an equal access to quality of life. Those foundations that make healthy communities are so important, and it's part of the reason why I went into politics was understanding that profoundly from the perspective of housing, but certainly water is no different.
The federal funding will pay for up to half of the cost of those projects. The province will provide an additional 25% in funding, $4.4 million in total, with communities providing the last 25%. Municipal Affairs Minister Bill Morrow says he knows finding funds can be a challenge for smaller communities.
It was not done in concert at that point with the province. I went to my colleagues as Minister of Municipal Affairs. I went to my Minister of Infrastructure and the Premier thinking we needed to find a way to play a role in this. So now municipalities, First Nations, local services boards that apply and are successful will at most have to come up with about 25% of the project cost.
Approved projects range from pump replacement at the Kasheshewan First Nation water treatment plant to remote monitoring and disinfection equipment for Shoal Lake 40. On the Fort William First Nation, $131,000 in combined provincial and federal dollars will be spent on new stormwater pipes and the extension of new water mains along the new housing subdivision off Little Lake Road.
The community is seeing growth, and Fort William First Nation is always taking steps to try and add additional housing and bring back our members that don't live on reserve.
Xiao Li, TBT News.
Meanwhile, the Wynne government made another multi-million-dollar announcement in Thunder Bay today. The province is partnering with a number of organizations in their effort to end chronic homelessness. A partnership with the Thunder Bay DSAB was announced today to help eradicate the problem by 2025. Corey Nordstrom has details.
Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Bill Morrow announced $5.3 million over 3 years to fund the Home for Good initiative. It's also a partnership between the district's Social Services Board, St. Joseph's Care Group, and the Dalico Anishinaabeg Family Center. St. Joe's will provide the mental health supports for individuals, with Dalico working on identifying and assessing the needs of the individual to determine the appropriate housing level for them. DSAB Administrator Bill Bradica says that through this project, they're looking to make major improvements for homeless or at-risk citizens in the Thunder Bay area.
They do require supports in many cases to have a successful tenancy. So this program will directly address that for individuals who might have a mental health or addictions issue that need housing but need support in order to continue to maintain housing.
This announcement expands on the Supportive Housing Project, which began in March as part of the long-term affordable housing strategy. Bradica says they haven't made any concrete plans whether the money will go towards building or refurbishing an existing structure. He did say some of the funds will go towards hiring a new staff member at the DSAB to provide assistance to current tenants. Morrow says the province recognizes that homelessness can have a major impact on communities through a number of ways.
Whether it's our hospital system, whether it's the criminal justice system, there are costs associated with homelessness. And so I think by investing to try and do what we can to eliminate as best we can chronic homelessness, not only are we helping those people that are directly affected, but we're helping the community at large.
Chronic homelessness is defined as an individual who has been homeless for 6 of the last 12 months. Through the Home for Good initiative, housing will be made available for 80 individuals by March of 2019 and maintaining housing for 40 existing tenants at risk of homelessness. The DSAB says this should eliminate overflow capacity for the 2 emergency shelters in the city. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Liquidation sales for Sears Canada are set to start late next week, including the store here in Thunder Bay. The company announced a plan in June to close 59 locations At that time, the local outlet was not on the chopping block. But now, Sears has filed a motion in court applying for approval to liquidate all of its remaining stores and assets. The motion will be heard on Friday, but the company has already announced a liquidation sale starting October 19th, which could last 10 to 14 weeks. We spoke to some people outside Intercity Shopping Center today who were saddened to hear the news.
Well, I'd miss it because I'm used to coming here just, to shop and look around, and I will miss it. And the products are pretty good here.
Oh, I'm really sad about Sears closing. I'm not much of a shopper, so I can always find some really good sales there at Sears. And City of Thunder Bay is really going to miss Sears, and so am I.
I'm very sad about this. Sears closing. It's not very good. We are losing a lot of jobs, and it's a good story to you go and walking around, and everybody there is so friendly.
It's really sad. I had a lot of really great memories with my family and stuff, going to Sears, getting clothes, shoes, like a bunch of everything. And it's just really sad to see such a great Canadian store closing down.
And we'll have more on the Sears situation coming up later in the news hour. The largest plane to ever land in Thunder Bay is back again for a second delivery. The Russian-built Antonov 124 was previously here late in August. The plane touched down again early this afternoon at the Thunder Bay Airport, apparently carrying parts for the Bombardier railcar assembly line. The Antonov is the same height as a 7-story building. It has a wingspan 2/3 the size of a football field. Bombardier officials won't comment on the nature of the cargo, but a Toronto Star article in July reported the shipment includes Austrian manufactured cabs for the TTC streetcars, which are being assembled at the Thunder Bay plant. It will be another month before the Crown and police determine if additional charges will be laid against Braden Bushby. The city teenager was charged with aggravated assault back in January for allegedly throwing a trailer hitch at 34-year-old Barbara Kentner. She suffered abdominal injuries and died in hospital 5 months later. This morning at the Thunder Bay Courthouse, Assistant Crown Attorney Rob Kozak said both he and police need more time to review pathology reports before considering additional charges. Bushby is expected to be back in court November 6th. And charges have now been laid in connection with a frightening head-on collision on Thunder Bay's north side this past weekend. The collision between an SUV and a pickup truck occurred at about 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon on Water Street near Bay. Today, Thunder Bay police confirmed they've charged a 38-year-old city woman with impaired driving. She was one of 3 people taken to hospital by ambulance. The woman suffered a fractured pelvis and a fractured ankle in the accident. The driver of the other vehicle suffered a broken collarbone, while an adult passenger in the vehicle ended up with a possible concussion. Police say the offending driver also was wanted on a warrant and for breach of probation. The roadway was closed for much of the day Saturday while police carried out their investigation. Meanwhile, Thunder Bay police are crediting Eye on the Street personnel with assisting in the arrest in a mischief case. Police received a 911 call from them early yesterday morning, alerting them to someone lighting a fire at a Victoria Avenue business. Fire personnel responded to the call, and there was no damage from the arson attempt, but police did discover some damage to flower pots and garbage cans in the vicinity. A 40-year-old man was taken into custody at the scene. Lakehead University has signed an agreement with the International Research Institute in the Northwest that will give students more opportunities to learn in the wild. The Experimental Lakes Area, or ELA, is made up of 58 small lakes near Vermilion Bay, as well as their watersheds. The new 5-year Memorandum of Understanding was signed between LU and the International Institute for Sustainable Development, which runs the ELA. The agreement makes it easier for researchers from both organizations to collaborate and will include joint research projects. The ELA has been at the forefront of research into freshwater fish, climate change, and the health of freshwater lakes in Canada for nearly 5 decades. LU officials say the new agreement is important as fieldwork and other research done outside the lab is invaluable for both students and faculty. The trial against 2 Ontario Liberals accused of bribery continues in Sudbury. That's former Deputy Chief of Staff Pat Cerbera on the left entering the courthouse this morning. She's pleaded not guilty to Election Act charges. Local Liberal fundraiser Jerry Lougheed has also pleaded not guilty. Both are accused of offering positions to a would-be candidate in the 2015 Sudbury by-election to clear the way for the Premier's preferred candidate. Defense lawyers are asking the judge for a directed verdict today, saying the Crown has failed to prove its case. The request hinges on a legal determination of who should be considered a candidate. If the defense request is granted, the trial would end and the pair would be acquitted. Meanwhile, more negative poll results for Premier Kathleen Wynne. A new Darts Insight poll indicates 75% of people asked believe it's time for a change in the provincial government. Only 11% of those asked said they would vote for Wynne. When asked about the latest numbers at the opening of a new hospital tower in Burlington today, the Premier says her focus remains on addressing the needs of the province.
You know, when I get up in the morning, my job is to make sure that we are doing everything we can to help people in this province. That's my job. My job is not to analyze the polls. My job is to make sure that we work to provide opportunity and fairness to everyone across the province. That's what raising the minimum wage is about. That is what making the workplace a fair and safe place to work is about. That's what building this hospital is about.
The Pigeon River border is seeing a lot more Americans and a lot fewer Canadians crossing over the past 2 summer seasons, and the change in travel habits appears to coincide with the rise and fall of the Canadian dollar. Border agencies on both sides of the Pigeon River record the number of vehicles crossing through their checkpoints. The stats showed a 15% drop in vehicles from the summer of 2014 to the summer of 2015, when the dollar fell from around 92 cents to 75 cents U.S. The decline in vehicles has leveled off over the past 2 years. Meanwhile, Statistics Canada tracks the number of individual travelers crossing at Pigeon River. In July of 2013, 3 out of 4 travelers entering Canada were Canadians. That ratio is now about 2 to 1, as the number of Canadians has dropped by about 30% over the past 5 years. The number of Americans crossing into Canada has increased by about 20% from July 2013 to July 2017. Officials from Thunder Bay Fire Rescue selected St. Jude School as the place to kick off their annual Fire Prevention Week campaign today. Teachers and classmates got a lesson and gave their own presentations about the importance of fire safety in their school as well as in their homes. Molly Fromer has that story.
Fire Chief John Hay was among the dignitaries at St. Jude School to launch the National Fire Prevention Week. And this year's theme is Every Second Counts, Plan 2 Ways Out. The chief had the chance to speak with the students about the importance of fire safety, such as when to change your smoke alarms, never re-entering a burning building, and all about carbon monoxide.
You should be able to have 2 ways out and one rallying point outside where you're going to meet, one meeting place, and never change the place where you're going to meet. But there should be 2 ways out, either both doors or a window and a door. It's not always assume that the fire is going to be in one place that makes it convenient to go to the door.
Then it was the grade 4 students' turn to present a fire safety video they put together over the past few weeks. Grade 4 teacher Derek Vrzonik says this presentation taught the students many safety tips they can use in their personal lives outside of school.
It was nice to see a blend of cross-curricular subjects from language as well as dramatic arts being put into place. The biggest message I want them to go home with is the importance of fire safety, and that a lot of these tips are simple tips that are very important and often overlooked and should be commonplace in everyone's life.
So if one part of the room, if your escape place for one is blocked, you can go to the other one.
Fire Prevention Week runs until this Saturday, and to continue the fire safety throughout the school here, students will have a surprise fire drill to know exactly how to exit safely and where to meet. Molly Fromer, TBT News.
Well, Fiona, hard to believe we're approaching mid-October. Turned out to be almost a perfect day.
Almost. I don't know what more you could possibly ask for. We were above seasonal. We had low